Today we're going to be looking at the new expert advisor developed by Profalgo Limited, or Mr. Wim, which is the Bitcoin Reaper. So excited to dive into this one because this developer has previously developed quite a few different EAs, which are some of the most popular and long-standing ones in the market. A few months ago I did a review on his new Ultimate Breakout system, which proved to be quite popular with quite a few users in the community. So curious to see how the Bitcoin one is different and what type of strategy it's following. So Bitcoin right now is attracting a lot of attention with a lot of the fundamental kind of news events happening in the States, like the Genius Act was opened and was just passed, which allows for stable coins to become a bit more legitimate. There's broad basket administrative support for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency more generally. And because of this, and because of all of these different fundamental drivers behind the increased popularity and increased support, many traders are kind of anticipating a break of current levels and further bullish price action. And due to that fact, even in my own community, I'm getting a lot of interest for Bitcoin EAs. So it totally makes sense why we made this bot, because a lot of people in the general trading industry are looking for something which is Bitcoin specific. And Wim, in most of his bots, from what I can see, and I think this is pretty similar to the Gold Reaper, based on some of the wordage he's using here, it tends to follow a very breakout-based system. And specifically what he does, and I've listened to some interviews with him in the past, my understanding is there's quite a few different pending orders which are placed in supply and demand zones, some of which are kind of close to local highs and local lows, but then sometimes you'll place certain orders above or below because depending on how often a level is revisited, it has like a stronger presence behind it. And he has an interesting kind of approach to essentially putting pending orders at supply and demand zones or local highs, local lows, support and resistance, using his own proprietary methodology, which is a bit different than a lot of other systems in the market, like for instance, the bots developed by Lothi, they tend to just place it at a high or low. Wim's approach is a bit more sophisticated and a bit more proprietary than that. And the main thing here is, does this strategy work as well on Bitcoin as it will on gold? Bitcoin is probably a good asset for this because it tends to trend, but Bitcoin also tends to go into these periods of more ranging price action. So curious to see how this bot will do when we enter those periods. One thing to note is that the bot is brand new, so he doesn't have a signal yet, but I venture that as soon as the track record gets a bit longer, he'll publish something. We can go over here and check out the Gold Reaper, which is one of his other bots, which is running, my understanding is a pretty similar strategy, but on gold. And as we can see, the strategy has been very consistent to date. One thing to note is gold has also been uptrending this entire time. So perhaps there is an impact of the particular price action on it. If gold were to enter a very, very severe downtrend, what would it look like? That being said, we have had some more bearish price action as of late, and the signal appears to be holding up quite well. So we can go to the statistics here, and we can see that it is also making money off of sells, which is a good sign. So it's able to be a bit more bidirectional. Whereas if you want to do a long-only strategy, and I have many long-only strategies, you typically would want to have either a fundamental or a very strong filter behind it, which prevents it from trying to go long in more bearish periods. So overall, looking pretty good here. And apparently this is running 10 different strategies, but you can also set your max drawdown. One thing I've noticed with Wim's strategies is because sometimes he stacks many pending orders at one level, if they're wrong, you can have a lot of trades wrong at the same time. And that has led to some of the heftier drawdowns I see here in some of his other signals. This one's only a 16% drawdown, but he has a few other ones which are closer to 30. And this stacking of orders, my understanding is, yes, it can give you super, super high profits when it gets right, but it can also magnify the drawdowns. So I think his max permitted drawdown is kind of a interesting addition here, where it automatically will add more or less orders based on your drawdown preferences, which is really smart. Because if you put in all the possible orders, if you get them all wrong, or if you enter more of a ranging period of price action, that could probably be a bit painful. So that's kind of a fairly nice addition to that. So far it looks pretty solid. He says that you can run it on the Bitcoin H1 chart to backtest it or run it more generally. So overall, pretty solid. A few filters for time, for GMT offset, and the risk settings here. So yeah, looking solid. And Wim has a long track record of developing bots for many, many years. So I have no doubt that he's put some good thought into this one too. The only kind of risk factor is Bitcoin, it tends to be a bit less clean in terms of its trending nature than gold. You have these long, almost box ranging periods of Bitcoin followed by strong breakouts. Whereas even if we were to look at gold, for instance, like yes, we have some ranging periods, but it tends to be a bit more of a cleaner trend. Whereas Bitcoin, I'm by no means a crypto expert, but you have a lot of these almost periods of consolidation before breakouts. And if you're placing too many pending orders at local highs, local lows, you could be whipsawed quite a bit just because it's more prone to false breakouts than an asset like gold. So that's my only concern here. Like gold Reaper's done really well, but gold also trends a lot more cleanly. I'm curious to see how this actually works on Bitcoin, because there has been like the Bitcoin Wizard and a few other bots which are more similar to this, and not many of them have had too much longevity. So that is kind of my concern. Like, will something be able to survive the choppiness of Bitcoin? That is the main question. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm not sure, but that's one thing that we need to keep an eye out for. So here I ran a backtest, and this is like looking a bit too good because it's 1 minute open, high, low, close. The reason I did that is because there's so many orders here, it takes absolutely forever to backtest over a reasonable period of time. So keep in mind that the equity curve will generally probably look like this, but it will also not be as good. The reason why I did this is my understanding from some of Wim's interviews is that most of his bots run on 1 minute candles. Therefore, it's less sensitive to using every tick than it is based on using 1 minute open, high, low, close. But I would encourage you guys to just, if you're going to run this backtest yourself, run one using every tick based on real ticks and just like leave your computer for an hour or so and just come back. What we can see here is that it kind of follows his classic approach where he does stack tons and tons of orders at local high and local lows. And the downside of that is like if you get it wrong, many of them can all hit stop loss at the same time. And same thing here, like you can see that a few times it has hit and you can have a whole cluster of orders being wrong. And this leads to an absolute like ton of orders being executed. It can definitely work because instead of taking, I don't know, let's say a 2-lot trade, you just divide it by 5 and place it all at a similar level. Definitely a valid concern. He's kind of sprinkling out the orders across multiple different pending orders. But it is one thing to note that you might have these clusters of winners and losers. Like here we have a cluster of winners, and here we have a cluster of losers, for instance. Actually, no, cluster of winners, and then I believe this is a cluster of losers. He went short many, many different times, but it got stopped out. So one thing to note is like you will have these clusters. But apart from that, it does appear to be very similar to Gold Reaper, where he's placing a basket of pending orders at key levels. Let's run now a back test here. I'll switch it to every tick based on real ticks and go into visual mode just to see what the performance will be like. And then at the same time, we can pause it afterwards to see how the equity curve is looking. So yeah, this is why it's so slow to run. Like Wim kind of takes this approach of just using an absolute boatload of pending orders. And he's had a lot of success doing this with many different bots. So he's developed this like proprietary way of setting pending orders, which clearly is working for him because he has a lot of fans. He's gotten good payouts on Darwin X, etc. So there must be something to it. But one thing to note is that you do have to be prepared to just have an absolute like boatload of orders, which will be just something that you should be expecting. And yeah, he's placing them at different zones. And I believe that each order has a different like profit taking and or stop loss approach. So some of them are going to have shorter stop losses, some are going to have longer stop losses, some will have different types of pending orders. So we can see that there's really a lot of orders here, right? Like these are all pending orders and there's a huge cluster. And these are all like active pending orders. So interesting stuff. Let's look at the graph here. And yeah, the good thing is it is matching, generally speaking, 1 minute open, high, low, close when you run it on every tick. So it's not going to be perfect, but the main thing to look out for is we're not having this graph which is just going straight down. We're running it 1 minute, every tick based on real ticks versus straight up when we run it 1 minute open, high, low, close. So my takeaway is this bot is looking promising. It is a tried and tested strategy that Wim has had great success with on many other bots. He's a very good developer, he knows what he's doing, but my only kind of hesitation is I have not seen this strategy work super well on Bitcoin yet because of the periods of consolidating price action. So we have to see, let's give it a couple months and see how it works. Because once we have a live signal, we can actually put this to the test. Just because people have tried this, a variation on this before, and not as well. So it has not worked as well. However, Wim is kind of the godfather of this type of strategy. So perhaps he's found a really good way to crack it. So excited to see when the live signal shows up, what the what the performance is like. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.